She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand, hold up on she frack, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For Crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Crow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country.
Yep. Sorry about that. Good night. I was just talking about life in the country. Life in the country. Beautiful, beautiful life in the country. Tonight's topic, we're dealing with mothers, right? We're dealing with that aspect of life. But this reminds me of back in the country, President Granger, when mothers, neighbors, you see them washing and enjoying, and then their babies next to them as they're washing their clothes, their dishes, and so forth. And it pains my heart because I'm wondering, how are they able to do that now? How are they able to do that? Especially, this is not trench water. That's water coming from the tap, the pipe. I don't know. But good night, President Granger. That's not how I intended, planned on starting the program. But how are you doing, sir? Good night.
Good evening. It's good to be back on the program. And, as you start the program with that image, you can see that our mothers face challenges every day. I mean, not just in their families, but, just to get clean water. I mean, when I grew up in the countryside, we used those brass standpipes. But even with the standpipes and you see mothers going there early in the morning with their buckets, I cannot recall in colonial times seeing such nasty water. It is definitely a serious, indictment about a country which is independent since 1966, producing that quality water for mothers and children. I don't know which direction we're traveling in. The focus probably is not on uh, on quality of life, because water is life, and if that is the water coming through the pipes, you can see that things are not good for a lot of Guyanese. Anyhow, apart from that, we must press ahead.
Yes, we must press ahead. And just lots of folks when they see the condition of the water and so forth, they just wish that they were back in the coalition time, because you guys did a lot for water, electricity, standard of living, quality of life. Kudos to you and your administration. And it breaks the hearts of many people, especially our mothers, when they have to be subjected to these sort of treatment. Tonight's topic, though, we will be dealing with mothers. When mothers are happy, families are happy. When families are happy, communities are happy. When communities are happy, the country is happy. Mothers in Guyana of every race, religion, region are frequently both caregivers and breadwinners for their families, but face many challenges to raise their children in safe, healthy, and happy homes. Safe, healthy, and happy homes. It's certainly not like that, the condition of the water. So tonight's program, Anansi Web Education, we'll examine the challenge of motherhood. This program addresses the following questions, and we'll deal with question number one, President Granger. What are the gravest challenges to motherhood in Guyana today?
Well, it's a good place to start, and we must understand that there is no, at least in my mind, there is no institution in the state, in society, in the nation that is more important than motherhood. You know, we are all children of mothers, and I mean, it is axiomatic. It is, you know, you can't imagine that what would happen to any country if motherhood is in jeopardy, and every country must place foremost the attention it pays or the support it pays to mothers. So I would say that when you look at the challenges, you know, that motherhood faces, there's nothing more important. There's no roads, there's no constitution, there's no deep water harbor, there's no gas to energy project. Nothing is more important than motherhood, as far as I'm concerned. Let's start there. And once we accept that, um, that motherhood is the most important thing that any society would have, we must consider, or we should consider, giving every possible support to mothers. And first of all, I'd like to say that mothers have to be given assistance. Mothers are not lone rangers, you know. They are the matriarchs, the heads of the families. And they need the support of their family. They need the support of their husbands. They need support of friends and their partners. They need a support network. I mean, I can only speak for Christianity, but I'm sure that there must be similar systems in other religions. The church I attend, the church my family attends, my wife and my children and grandchildren, always have a mothers' union. There's always a mothers' union, and this emphasizes the role of the church. And of course, you know, in the Christian church, there's particular reverence to Mary, the mother of Jesus. But mothers need assistance, and we must understand that, you know, we can't abandon mothers if they're poor or destitute. Mothers need assistance. The other thing is the mothers need attention. We don't want the mothers to feel distressed about the ability to provide for their children, and we must ensure that in everything we do, government or non-governmental organizations, mothers do not have to worry about being able to provide for their children in terms of material support or emotional support. And young mothers sometimes are shocked to discover how much it costs to raise children, and they're quite anxious about being able to afford children. You know, unfortunately, some young mothers embark on motherhood without thinking about the consequences, but they have to become financial gymnasts. You know, there's something I will call it management is gymnastics. You know, trying to make sure that they can provide for their children's needs every month. It's not a matter of stretching the dollars. Sometimes there's just nothing to stretch, and they need to make financial decisions every day to provide for the family's needs. Some needs cannot be postponed. You know, if you have to pay rent, you know, you can't give the landlord half a month rent or quarter month rent. What happened? They cut down on the food, or they cut down on other necessities. And mothers always have multiple roles. At least poor mothers have multiple roles. They don't have choices. You know, they have to go to work, and they have to, you know, struggle between work and home, and very frequently, I think more frequently now than before, some institutions are providing uh, uh, centers for their children, because particularly if you're dealing with public servants, nurses, and teachers, many of those persons are mothers. And if you're a policewoman, you know, you need to have a center where you can take your child, especially during the August holidays. And there are always different roles. Role as a mother and homemaker, as a housewife, and role as a professional, as an employee. And and also, I would say the other challenge that must be considered in this program is the challenge of what I call altruism. Mothers love their children, generally speaking, and they want the best for their children. And sometimes they do without. You see a mother in an old dress or something else, and people may say, "Well, you're not tired of wearing that dress," but they want to make sure their children are properly dressed. Children want new shoes to go to school. Between the ages of secondary schooling, between say 11 and 18, children are changing clothes, changing school, their shoes, and the mother has to make do with old clothes, old shoes for herself, but to make sure their children are properly kitted out. So these are five of the big considerations I think women have to, or mothers have to bear. That is, they need assistance. That's a challenge. They need to get attention, pay attention to their children's needs. They're anxious about, ensuring that the children, regardless of how expensive it is, the children are given proper food, proper nutrition, and they have to keep making financial decisions. They have to balance their work. Most mothers nowadays work. They don't have the typical housewife where the mother would just stay at home and the husband would go out. Most husbands and wives have to go to work, same time in the morning. So they have to balance the mother, not the father. The father could just stop off after work and have a drink or something. The mother has to get home and prepare dinner or something like that. And they focus on their children. And this is something, these are values, these are challenges that the state has to accept and understand, and ensure that their mothers, persons who are mothers, and all women in general, are given the quality support that they need in terms of salaries and wages, but in terms of other supporting systems. So I would say these are some of the challenges that we need to think about when we think about motherhood, and these are the gravest challenges. These five things that I mentioned, these are the gravest challenges that mothers face on a daily basis, not occasionally, maybe 10 or 15 years after they get married and they get children. From day one, from the moment they start to get children, you have to think about these five matters. And that's my answer to your question. If you want
Thank you
happy
so much.
families, you have to deal with those issues.
Thank you so much, President Granger. For those who have just joined us, it's Anansi Web Education. Thank you for sharing the link and inviting others to join the program tonight. We are dealing with the challenge of motherhood. We'll take the next question. Why have so many mothers and wives been killed in Guyana? Why have so many mothers and wives been killed in this beautiful country, Guyana?
This is a very sobering question. I don't have the answer. I can only suggest that one of the reasons is that at the level of state and society, um, insufficient attention is paid to the whole question of motherhood. And things have changed in the nation, things have changed in the country, in the state over the years. Certainly, at the middle of the last century, there was real pride or attentiveness to the mother, even though we were poorer. Now we have trillion-dollar budgets, but people are not paying attention to the importance of motherhood. And it is because of this lack of attentiveness at the level of the state. Most state employees are women to start with. And it is essential that at the level of state, we pay women employees, well, all employees, but women particularly, sufficient so that they can have happy families. And this is the level of teacher, level of nurse, and level of public servant. And I think that would deal with the question of respect. That once you accept that these women are mothers, they'll be treated more respectfully. And secondly, at the level of public safety, human security, human safety, Ministry of Home Affairs, whatever you call it, we must put measures in place to make sure that women are safer. And I am not convinced that enough is being done to protect women from being murdered. And when we talk about human safety, uh, we must look at the community policing system, we must look at the neighborhood policing system, and we must look at the citizen security program. These programs can be made to work if they are oriented towards protecting women. And in almost every case, you see a mother being chopped to pieces. There are indicators in society, when people are aware, family is aware, society is aware, the community is aware of what is happening, that a woman is being beaten every night, but no protection is being afforded. And everything must be done to protect that woman, because eventually, um, as happened too frequently, every month of the year, every year in the last 4 years, women end up being killed. So if we accept that mothers are precious institution, motherhood is a precious institution, more must be done at the level of the law enforcement agencies. The courts have been responsive. We now have family courts, and I think we have a judiciary. During my administration, uh, there has been a woman chancellor, a woman chief justice, and if you look at the magistracy and the judiciary, you'd see that a large number of judges and magistrates are women. And I think it's quite unfortunate that some people in the PPP administration have been critical, unnecessarily and unwisely critical of our women magistrates and judges. But the courts can do their part, but the law enforcement agencies also have to do their part to protect women from these murders, white murders. The record in Guyana is atrocious, and women are being killed, because of the way society perceives motherhood, and because the safety nets, the mechanisms, particularly in law enforcement agencies, are just not there. And women cannot always protect themselves from abusive husbands and the sort of situations we have in the country with excessive alcohol consumption at some of these mining camps and in the hinterland and the coastland. And well, murders are not always the product of drunkenness and alcoholism. Murders are often premeditated. But what I would like to say is that they are often indicators. These things are not sudden. White murders are not sudden. And in most cases, they could be measures at the level of the state, at the level of law enforcement. Don't wait till it gets to the court, but at the level of law enforcement agencies. The policing system at the neighborhood and community level must be adjusted towards protecting women. And I don't think that adjustment has been made. Even though you have enough material, enough evidence to show the trends in white murders, I do not think enough has been done to protect women from abusive partners and interpersonal violence.
Thank you so much, President Granger, talking about the gravest challenges to motherhood in Guyana. Well, we spoke about that before, but the second question that was just answered, why have so many mothers and wives been killed in Guyana? Our third question, and for those who are now joining, good night and welcome. Our third question, President Granger, is who determines what is best for mothers today? Who?
The answer is mothers, uh, you know, and it may seem simple on the surface, but this is one of the reasons why we must ensure that at decision-making levels, and this is what the Constitution calls for in Article 30, that when we talk about NDCs, this is not about party paramountcy and winning and losing. This is a question of ensuring that at the most basic level of the state, the NDC, in every region, there must be women. Because women are really, and women who are mothers, are really the best person to say what they need. And certainly when I was president, I like to keep saying this over and over again. I made sure that in the PNC cohort in the National Assembly, it was equally balanced between males and females. Nobody better than a woman, better than a mother, can say what is best for her. And it is no point, as I see some political parties trying to do, to have executives, executive council or committee without women. Uh, they're speaking for 50% of the population. If they want to appeal to the whole population, they have to include representatives of the other half of the population. So what we need to do before all this bloviation about constitution reform, go to the people, go to the women, go to the communities, and ask them what they need. Don't tell them how you would like things done. And women will give you a different side of the picture. I remember there was a time when architects would build huge buildings, people design roads, and sometimes you would go downtown and there's somebody in a wheelchair can't get across the road because there's no pavement, there's no sidewalk, there's no zebra crossing, and they just wait there until the traffic is completely dead, and then they try to get across. But if you ask somebody in a wheelchair, how could road safety be improved? They'll give you a different story. Similarly, if you ask women what is best, they will give you a different story. I mean, they have to go to work, so they want somewhere where the children could be safe and happy while they're at work. If you ask them what types of foods or ties or whatever they need, they'll be able to tell you for themselves that they have that experience. So, who determines what is best? Unless you change the political system from a gender point of view, um, unless you look at the school system, look at our schools. I mean, everybody, would remember what happened. I think it was in 1976 when you had all boys schools, and you suddenly putting, girls. well, without preparing for girls. Unfortunately, girls are not boys. Although they may be equal in terms of access to education and the rights. You need to start designing schools for girls, or with facilities for girls. And you just don't assume that, because of equality, it doesn't really matter. So everything in society, not only in government, not only in architecture, not only in public infrastructure, not in education, everything needs to cater for the whole population. And who is best? Mothers are best. They know what's best for themselves and their children. And unless we have a governmental system which accepts that women have to be treated as equals in terms of representation in cabinet, in national assembly, in the executive committees of your political parties, you're never going to have a happy solution. Even in the police force, I mean, in Jamaica, the chief of staff of the Jamaican Defense Force is a woman. You look at what's been happening in the United Kingdom. In many of the chief constables during the disturbances they've been having in that country are women. I'm not saying it is an absolute solution to these problems, But we have to understand that society is made up of men and women, and not men alone. And some people haven't they haven't become woke, they haven't awoken to that reality as yet. So that's my answer to your question. We need to revisit every single institution in the country: the church, the army, the government, the state, the National Assembly, to ensure that women are given a position in decision making, because they're the best persons to decide what is best for them. And mothers, particularly, are the best persons. Um, and I think maybe some men are afraid of being outvoted, or but I think that is the way to go.
Thank you so much, President Granger, for that. It takes us to our final question. And again, thank you all out there in the audience, those who have shared the link already. We appreciate it. And those who have taken time out of your busy schedule to pay attention to tonight's program that deals with the challenge of motherhood. Our final question, President Granger, it's how can the happiness of mothers be assured?
Again, Mark, I think it is possible to generate a checklist um, of things which need to be done to ensure that mothers are happy. And as I said, if mothers are happy, the family, the children and the families will be happy. And if you have happy families, the community and the country will be happy. So to start with, I feel we must revisit and embrace a position taken by Partnership for National Unity, that is, girls who, for one reason or the other, have gotten children before they have completed their secondary education. And unfortunately, there have been some cases where even some of the primary education has been brought to a halt. Girls' education must be given priority. It is vital to their happiness that they are allowed to conclude their education satisfactorily, because that is the key to their mobility. And once a mother is educated, there is a greater chance that her child and children will also be educated. I think that's the key to happiness. I think the days of ignorance, the days of keeping girls away from school, and the men will go out and get the degrees and so on, those days are over. Women must be given enhanced, not even equal, enhanced access to education to ensure that they can gain that opportunity for mobility, because they will pass that value, that quality, that incentive onto their own children to make sure they do get education. Secondly, employment. A lot of women in Guyana, I can't give you the percentage, are in some form of informal employment. You go by the market. Who are the vendors? Who are the domestic servants? Um, and sometimes informal employment is not safe, it's not secure, and it's not sustainable. They may turn up at work some morning and the boss says, we don't need you any longer. So we need to look at employment for women. And women who are not mothers, particularly who are not in secure and sustainable jobs, are frequently poor. And sometimes poor women have poor children. And they cannot provide the material and emotional support that their children need. And poverty tends to be intergenerational. I use an expression, maybe the sociologist will criticize me, but it tends to be hereditary. You know, poor mothers get poor children, and so it goes on. Sometimes you see a child, uh, don't pay attention to her, ask for her mother, and you see her mother is also poor. The mother might be some security guard working for a very low wage, and sometimes she has several children. So employment is important. The question of equality. This is a bitter pill for some men to follow, but women have to be treated as equal, not only by legislation, but unless women are treated as equal, unless measures are taken to promote equality and remove the disparities between the coastland and the hinterland, between rural and urban communities, we're not going to erase this inequality. And when you look at what happens, what they call Western Port Island, Western Port Island, you have four huge regions. The biggest part of Guyana is Western Port Island. The whole of Region 1, the whole of Region 7, the whole of Region 8, and the whole of Region 9, and even parts of Region 10 are technically hinterland. And the quality of, of state services, the quality of the schools, the quality of the roads. I mean, there's a lot of road building, and every day you can see, the minister of this or the minister of that cutting a ribbon and declaring open some highway. But these highways don't exist between Anai and Achieved. These highways don't exist in getting troops to our western borders. These highways don't exist in the Bariba Winey region where Venezuelans are tumbling over one another. They come into the region 1, into the northwest. These highways are, Blackbush Pole and Cemetery Road. So, I mean, if we are going to think about equality, we have to think about the women in Karasabaya, not just carrying a few black bags every few weeks to hand out to them. But you need have a highway between Anai and Achieve. You need highways in the Mazuri Kuyuni. This is what the PNC administration was trying to do in UMRP, the Upper Mazuri Road project. If you want to get to Ettringbang, from Bardika, you've got to fly. And sometimes helicopters, drop out in the sky. So we need proper thinking about hinterland development if we are to bring about equality. Then there's a question of safety also. Mothers must be protected. Mothers must be protected from interpersonal violence. This is not something optional, or we have to think about traffic police, we have to think about, immigration. The safety, human safety, is the paramount purpose of having a police force. Mothers must be fully protected, and in most communities, it is possible to tell when mothers are in jeopardy, when mothers are at risk or under threat. And that is something that was the focus of the police force. Um, then we have to think about maternal health. That is the days of mothers dying in childbirth. I was personally told the story by former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who's a Korean, who says, who told me, and I think he wrote about it as well, that in Korea, the poor area from Korea where she came from, pregnant women would leave the slippers at the door, and pray that, after giving birth to the child, they could still go back and find the slippers. Because so many died in childbirth that they weren't sure of getting back their slippers. It is an anecdote from Ban Ki-moon, and you could cite me on that. But, I think we must make maternal deaths a thing of the past in Guyana. And the question of childcare. It is not easy, it is not cheap to bring up children. And the health system, the public health system, and this is one of the reasons why, APNU changed the name of the ministry, the Ministry of Public Health, to emphasize the fact that we must have a broad idea of what is called for in terms of public health. Many people in the hinterland suffer from vector-borne diseases, malaria, dengue, filaria. Sometimes the water supply is not safe. And we need to think about facilities for children, family-friendly services, childcare centers, so that the workload that mothers have to bear is shared in the state. Sometimes you see pictures in countries with the mothers in the field with a hoe with the children at their back, or soldiers have every now and then the GDF threatens to send women soldiers to the hinterland. What happens to the children? You know, there must be some childcare system in the country to make sure that the mother's workload is borne not by themselves alone, but also by the state. Um, and finally, I would say, in answer to your question, you say this is your last question here. Um, Mothers could be happy if the teenagers are protected from the perils of unwanted pregnancy or premature pregnancy. Um, and I think mothers would like to see their teenage daughters complete their education and make informed decisions about childbearing and about marriage and so on. They don't want to have these responsibilities forced on them when they're 13 or 14 years old, before they've completed their secondary education. If you want happy mothers, let motherhood be a decision which is an informed decision. And it is a fact that sometimes, motherhood is forced upon young girls before they're ready. And it could be because of their beliefs, it could be because of culture, it could be because of poverty, whatever the reason is. That I think the evidence that girls between the age of 15 and 19 may not quite be ready, um, emotionally, biologically, educationally, for motherhood. And if you want them to be happy, mature mothers, I think these are some of the issues that we have to address at the level of the state. So I would say that we must aim at happy mothers. We must aim at the target of making sure that every mother in this country is happy. And these are some of the considerations I think that must be borne in mind. Women have to be treated as equals, and women have to be given the facilities, more facilities than men, because women are the mothers. Men are never mothers. That's a fact of life. So motherhood is important, and we must make motherhood central in every aspect of state policy.
All right. So we see these beautiful little babies, I assume maybe with their mothers there. Um, that's just my assumption. But it says mothers are happy children. Mothers are happy. Children are happy. The country is happy. Well said. Mothers are happy. Children are happy. The country is happy. And we see this photograph with former First Lady. This is 2019, doing her duty as the First Lady. And we see there the Minister of State, former Minister of State, um, Miss Dawn Hastings, along with some hard-working nurses and those newborn babies. Again, mothers are happy, children are happy, and the country is happy. We need to get back to those beautiful, beautiful days. Tonight's topic, we dealt with the challenge of motherhood, and the questions what are the gravest challenges to motherhood in Guyana? And those were the questions we dealt with. Why have so many mothers and wives been killed in Guyana? And who determines what is best for mothers today? And the final question we dealt with, how can the happiness of mothers be assured? How can the happiness of mothers be assured? President Granger, thank you as always for your time. Um, and this program, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and we've gotten lots and lots of positive feedbacks from members of the audience and others who appreciate your time and who appreciate what we do here on Anansi Web Education. Thank you so much, as always, President David Arthur Granger. Thank you.
Thank you, and good night to your viewers and listeners. And it's always a pleasure for me to be on Anansi Web Education. Have a good night.
And please convey our best regards to the former First Lady. Tell her a lot of people appreciate. Some say they see her. Oh, I saw First Lady Sandra Granger yesterday, either somewhere in some store in the market, and looking at the prices, mind you, just looking at the prices. Give my regards to her as well.
I'll do that. Thank you again, and good night.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, thank you too. We'll see you next week, same place, same time, right here on Anansi Web Education. And to all you mothers out there, have a great rest of the night. God bless.
All day I back now, me now I come home. In a that jackass yard for fetchy load. Hawkley Cheyenne, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down, but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them.